Greetings, my fellow Fright Fiends. It's your buddy Boogeyman Ben here for a new episode of Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone, and this is a tag video. This is a response to Broncojuggalo Reviews, who tagged me going back into like mid to late November. This is the top 10 worst horror movie franchises tag. This was started by my friend Sean Erschen, and this is my response. And first, I want to apologize for this being so late. I meant to do this like a week and a half ago, but a lot of stuff going on, and I don't want to get into it. But I appreciate you being patient, Bronco, and I hope you enjoy my response. Many people that may not be familiar with, just how I do things here on this channel, I typically don't talk about things that I don't like. There's a lot of people that are really good at just like going into in-depth about, why there's certain franchises or movies that they don't care for, or why things went off the rails. So started going back and thinking about like what are some franchises that I don't like. There's different reasons why this top 10 list is put together, and I'm going to explain it to you as I go through each one, and these are in no particular order. First ones I want to talk about, my first worst horror movie franchise for me is the Paranormal Activity franchise, one that I just never really got. I understood the love for the first film. I did enjoy the first film for what it was. It was something that was done independently. It was picked up by a major studio, became a huge moneymaker for a very small, minuscule budget. Had a very sort of gimmicky kind of premise where, it was a one focal point pretty much for when all the horror stuff is going on, which was the couple that is sleeping, and you have the camera that's fixated on that. But for me, when the franchise kept going on, I didn't really get it. There were elements of the third one that I enjoyed, but the second one, the fourth one, I didn't even care to watch any of the other ones. I just got to a point where I'm like, it's just the same thing over and over. Chairs moving, lights moving. It just didn't interest me. And for me personally, I don't like found footage very much. It has to be done really well. There's certain ones that I think are fantastic. So yeah, Paranormal Activity is one that just I never really got into. For me, and it pains me to say this because I love the first film, and that's the From Dusk Till Dawn franchise. That first film is one of my favorite horror films of all time. I absolutely love it. The second film, Texas Blood Money, and the third one, The Hangman's Daughter, while it was better, both were just completely pale in comparison to the original. The original was so much fun, really well written, really well directed, fantastic cast. The sequels, even though I love Robert Patrick, that was kind of something that sold Texas Blood Money for me. The third film had some good cast members that I can't really think of right now, but both films were there was just nothing that really hooked you. They were just completely capitalizing on the name of the first film. They were shot really independently. I think Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez executive produced them, but didn't have the same feel as that first film. That first film was a rocket. It was just awesome, and it balanced two genres, that being kind of a heist kidnapping genre, and then you have the horror genre that caps it off. That movie was just a home run, and these two sequels that were just inferior in every possible way. As much as I love that first film, I never care to see those sequels again. Next for me is Hostel. Now, I'm a fan of Eli Roth. I actually love some of his films. More of his later films, but I think he's a fantastic filmmaker. I did like Cabin Fever. I enjoyed The Green Inferno. I really like Knock Knock. It's one of my favorite films that he's done. And I enjoyed his Death Wish movie, too. It wasn't too bad. But yeah, for some reason, the Hostel films, I never really I never grasped onto that one. I think one thing for me is that the first one came out a year that one of my best friend passed away. So watching that movie several months after my friend had died, it upset me so much that I couldn't even keep it in my house. I had to get rid of it, and I gave it to my brother-in-law, who was a fan of Eli Roth's work. Not that it's a bad film, and not that it's not well directed. But for me, and I've talked about this with Saw, because a lot of people say, well, Saw is kind of similar, it deals with torture and things like that. But Saw is a mystery. And these traps that are set up in Saw, some of them are just completely ridiculous. And you're like, how would somebody even do that? Whereas in Hostel, it's just somebody using a saw or a crowbar or a wrench or something to hurt somebody. And it's just like, why would I want to watch that for 2 hours? This was just a little too realistic. And, why would I want to watch someone be tortured for 2 hours? So yeah, that's why, Hostel just didn't work for me, and just don't ever care to see him again. The next franchise for me that I'm not a big fan of, and this even goes back to before they did. It was originally made, I'm going to correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the late 70s, early 80s. So when the first one came out, then they remade it in the 2000s. Is that Spit on Your Grave? Not a big fan of that film's franchise at all. Again, it's something where, a woman is tortured and raped, and yes, she gets her vengeance at the end, but what you have to endure, what she has to go through, and you're just for me, it's like watching someone go through that. I just there's no entertainment value in that, in my opinion. It's not something I want to watch. It's just too much to endure. So yeah, I never care to see those films. Next franchise that I'm not a fan of, and I've only seen the first one and part of the second one, and that's The Human Centipede. The first one was interesting. You know, it's more of, it's not as gross as I think they've gotten. I've seen part of the second one, and that was just ridiculous. But yeah, again, why would I want to watch this again? The first one, I thought there was some elements of it that were really cool. The main antagonist, I can't remember his name, I'll put it down below, but that character was very interesting. The experiment that he does, while interesting, it's just like, it's a horrific film to watch, in my opinion. It's not one that I would want to watch again. And the sequel took it even further, and then I didn't even want to see the third one, which took it even further. And I'm just like, it's a franchise that I just don't care to revisit, and it's just, pardon the cliche, but it left a bad taste in my mouth. Next for me is Grudge. Now, I'm talking about the US remake versions. I liked the first one a lot. That first Grudge movie with Sarah Michelle Gellar, I thought was really well done. Scary, really interesting. The second one was garbage. Absolutely hated it from start to finish. Was poorly executed, and I was surprised that they even made a third one, but I think it was a straight to DVD and Blu-ray. I didn't even want to watch it. The second one was just absolutely god-awful, and the first one, I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I do own it, but I haven't watched it in a long time, just because I really just hated that sequel, and really took a really interesting concept and just ruined it, in my opinion. So yeah, The Grudge would be the next one for me. After that comes The Ring. I have not seen Ring U. I have seen the remake that was done by Gore Verbinski with Naomi Watts. That movie scared the shit out of me. One of the scariest movies I've ever seen. My wife was freaked out by it the first time we watched it together, and absolutely think it holds up so well, very creepy. Naomi Watts gave a fantastic performance. I absolutely love it, and that ending is such a ball buster, just amazing. The second one, it has its goods and its bads. I liked it initially. Rewatching it, it does feel like it's missing something. I think there was just some things it just didn't have the edge that the first one did. And then the new one that they put out called Rings was absolutely horrible. Didn't get like why that was even necessary. It just doesn't shock anymore. It's just, now at this point, it's laughable, because that first one was so well done. It's so eerie, and those abstract images. It was done so well by a fantastic filmmaker. The new one was just absolutely horrible. So Rings was just terrible, and it sank this franchise even further than the second movie did, in my opinion. The next one for me pains me to say, because I love the first film so much, and I enjoy the second one. But that's Candyman. The first Candyman is one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. I absolutely love it. Bernard Rose, Virginia Madsen, the amazing Tony Todd, the music by Philip Glass, just fantastic. The location, everything in that movie works. It's so well done, so scary, it holds up so well. I'm kind of one of the people that's really excited that they are remaking it, or making what I've heard called a spiritual sequel to the original. I'm praying that they get Tony Todd to come back and play this role, because I love him as that character, and it's the role that helped me discover what an amazing actor this gifted man was. The sequel, Farewell to the Flesh, I think it starts really well, and there's some really interesting things in it. I thought the ending was really well done, but it just doesn't have that edge that first one did. The first one is bleak and creepy, and I felt like the second one just didn't have that. And the third movie, Days of the Dead, is absolutely horrible. One of the worst sequels I've ever seen in my life. It kind of killed the franchise. But yeah, I'm really glad that Jordan Peele's going to be involved in the new Candyman, because I think it's a franchise that needs some new blood, and I'm really hoping that they'll get Tony Todd to come back. But yeah, unfortunately, the two sequels don't hold a candle to the original. The next one for me is The Exorcist, and I did an Exorcist retrospective series over the course of a year and a half. It took way too long. The first Exorcist, of course, is a masterpiece. Second one got a lot of problems. Third one I absolutely love, and that's my favorite in the franchise. But the other two, The Beginning and Dominion, which were different variations of the fourth film, are just completely forgettable and not worth revisiting, in my opinion. Yeah, I think it's a shame that they couldn't make something as visceral and terrifying as the first and the third film with those other sequels. They're just completely forgettable. And the last one for me will be Blair Witch. Now, the Blair Witch Project is one of my favorite films of all time. I absolutely love it. It is a terrifying film that terrifies me today because it plays on my fears of being lost, which is one of my biggest fears of all time, being lost and not being able to find my way home. That is something that terrifies me and has always terrified me. I first saw that film when I was in film school back in '99. I knew about it. The rumors all over campus where I went to school at SF State was that, you know, this was based on a true story. And again, you know, you find out that it isn't, but what a fantastic marketing of that film, fantastic execution, believable performances. The people in that film, where some people say they're irritating, I didn't feel like any of them were trying to overact. That was just, they were trying to be natural as much as possible. Plus they were doing a lot of the filming. That movie still scares me to this day, and I know you don't see anything, but it's just the idea of being out in the elements and not being able to get back to where you need to be, and something out there is stalking you and you can't see what it is. That for me scares me more than anything. The sequel, Book of Shadows, is absolutely horrible. Makes no fucking sense. It was a really weird way of doing a sequel where it's a sequel based in reality, where the Blair Witch Project is a movie and didn't really happen. And then you have Blair Witch, which just came out a few years ago, which could have been so great, and I was really looking forward to it. I was like, finally they're making a real sequel to the Blair Witch Project, and it came off more like a remake. Hit the same beats, same type of ending. Yes, you saw a few more things in it, but it didn't, for me, it didn't answer any questions that were left open by the Blair Witch Project. And what I've always said about that first Blair Witch Project film is that it worked as a found footage movie because it was sold as something that really happened. Now we know that it didn't happen. So I didn't understand why they didn't make Blair Witch a normal film and not a found footage style film. It just didn't make sense to me. I think it would have worked better as just a normal narrative film instead of found footage style. And it just, like I said, hit the same beats. There was things that they tried to utilize to make it more interesting that just didn't work. The thing with the drone and things like that, you didn't see anything. So yeah, it's unfortunate because I think it killed the franchise again. Instead of, you know, helping it maybe develop into a successful franchise, it actually pushed it back. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I've tried to revisit the film a couple times. There's elements of it I think work, but a lot of it doesn't, unfortunately. So yeah, it's a shame, but yeah, Blair Witch is the last one for me. So that is it. I hope everyone enjoyed my top 10 worst horror movie franchises tag. Again, my friend Broncojuggalo who tagged me, thank you very much for doing that. So I'm going to leave this tag open-ended, so if anybody else wants to take this and run with it. It's been out for a while. I believe he published this on the 24th of November. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear other people's top 10 worst horror film franchises. And like I said, you know, I gave my explanations of why they were in this list. So it was interesting doing something like this because I usually do top 10 favorites or things like that, but this was kind of interesting. So I want to thank Bronco for tagging me. Thank you, Sean Erschen, for creating it. And thank you, everyone, for watching it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Would love to hear from everyone. As always, thanks so much for watching Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone. I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy. Stay scared as always. Peace. Patreon page if everybody wants to help support me. The link is down below. And if you do help support me, Dracula here will get more treats, and Dracula really loves his treats. So any support that you can give me would be very, very much appreciated. Right, Drac?